Be honest. Did you think I was going to come back? Me either. Every time I forge a little bit farther, I think, oh, maybe that'll be the last time. And then I show up again. I was also just listening. There's a train horn in the background, just as I am beginning to read chapter 52. It's called Back on Track. You probably won't hear the train. You can barely hear me, I realize. I don't know, I've got the best little mic that I have access to right now, so it is what it is. Hey, I'm glad to see you back too. Okay, here we go. I have a higher calling. I have known and often denied this reality for most of my current lifetime. In fact, I often remind myself of a bratty little princess who knows full well she has bigger shoes to fill in this lifetime and yet stomps her feet repeatedly and refuses to take that role seriously, or even to heart for that matter. My personality does not want this role. It felt like it was perhaps strapped to me by some religious system or by those looking for someone to save them from their sins. And I was adamant about brushing that responsibility off and sweeping it under the rug as nothing significant. Over the years, I've truly loathed the feeling I have that came with that level of responsibility, and have looked for many ways to displace that known expectation to the side. Truth. It's like I'm playing a game of truth or dare with myself, eh? I always teach people, we all are equals. Of course I do. And a divine reflection of source energy. And that will never change. It won't. It will never change. I openly talk about how we all hold the potential within to create our reality, both individually and collectively. That is still and will always be my perspective and understanding. I promise. I even regularly cheer on and express my confidence in all others. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? I truly do see the divine beauty and expression within your own soul works. I do. Now, over time, though, I lost confidence in both myself and my path. Perhaps it was derived from insecurities. Perhaps it was from the confusion and contradictory teachings currently being expressed throughout both society and the ages. But at some point, I did start to view my life as just a regular expression of spirit with no higher calling or divine purpose different than any other. Even from the infancy of my original 2 books and my SOULworks Sacred Healing Center, I spent all my time trying to convey and express all souls as being equal. In my place of business, I took the smallest room possible, presented our services on an equal front and playing field, and in all honesty, saw everyone else as worthier and saw everyone else as worthier of being there than I was in my own space. Despite the fact it was initially my dream. And more obviously, I was the one footing most of the responsibility and expenses. I regularly cut breaks to make people more financially stable in their own inner growth. I encouraged all others to teach and write. I even attempted to make the environment more like a community where everyone worked side by side in our shared pursuit of spiritual services. However, in truth, that was not a reflection of what had truly transpired. It wasn't. The reality to my energy, faith, and bank account certainly showed it was by no means an equal contribution. I had written truth before others had discovered them, pushed my faith to speak up about healing and other things before anyone around me was aware of those innate abilities. Spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. I did, keeping the doors open on my dreams while my family suffered the consequences. And yet I still found ways to take the load off anyone and everyone who needed assistance or help finding the way. Fact. What the hell is wrong with me? I questioned myself on many occasions. Why was I so committed to carry the load for others? Was that really my own beliefs being reflected? Was it? That I needed to suffer or that all others could benefit from my open heart? I don't believe that's my inner truth. Yet most certainly it was what appeared as my outer reality. Now my guides have always referenced a train that would cross my path to denote a point in time train horn in the background noted. A train that would cross my path to denote a point in time when my life would begin to fully transform. And I would change my perspective on both my role and life path. Ironically, I encountered 2 railway crossings every single day on my way to work. Now, over the years and nearly every time I stopped in traffic waiting for a train, I would question my guides as to what the true message behind the locomotion really was. And how would I ever know when it officially arrived? Then one day, in the dead of winter, I was heading to work, just like any other regular morning. When I pulled up to the first set of tracks, a train was already in motion. And vehicles sat waiting for the path to clear. Some patiently, some not so much. Just like I do every other time I encounter this type of scenario, I asked my guides if I should turn around and go another route or stay the course. I ask them that every day right now. On that particular day, though, my guides told me I had lots of time, so I should just wait and proceed along my usual route, which is exactly what I did. I waited for the train, crossed the road, and headed down the highway, knowing full well I would have to wait for the train once again at the second crossing. Or would I? I questioned my guides. Should I drive a bit faster? Beat the train to the next intersection and forgo the stop altogether? Despite my suggestion, or offered but the pedal to the metal, and bypass that second stop entirely, my guides and guidance was still the same. You have lots of time. You have lots of time. Slow down and proceed to work along your usual route. And so I did. In fact, as I arrived at that second crossing, I was guided to stay back slightly, even though I could certainly have made it to the front of the line. Instead, I slowed up, parked 3 cars back, and patiently waited for the train. It was a long and life-changing wait. Halfway into the train crossing on that major highway that day, the cars began to derail. One after the other. One after the other. I witnessed train car after train car leave its path and crush into a pile with more force and momentum than I ever care to witness again. My mind raced as I looked to the mounting pile of cars, the limited space, and the many people in their vehicles sitting at the crossroads with nowhere to go. I won't sugarcoat it for you. I was scared for my life and the lives of all others. In fact, I was terrified of the potential impact in lives of all others that could have been lost that day. I even phoned my husband right then and there at the crossing of this surreal unfoldment and warned him of the situation at hand. But it was also within that same moment my innate inner being began to kick into gear. Crazy or not, I utilized my mind to guide that train through the intersection and away from the vehicles in waiting. It was like time stood still, and the impact of the day seemed altered in time as the train lay to rest in a gargantuan heap. Definitely, but a heap that was miraculously away from many innocent bystanders parked in its wake. 30 rail cars derailed that day, and not one person was injured. And although I considered myself protected throughout the entire ordeal, I also could not wait to get the hell out of there and away from the wreckage as fast as possible. As I drove to work, I thought about the influence I exerted that day. For the first time in perhaps my entire life, I did not second guess my involvement, nor did I feel the need to prove the contribution I wielded that day. I knew and fully understood the energetic impact I had on the final resting place of those rail cars. To me, working with energy had become my nature. The accident may have been bound to happen, but I never questioned the possibility of creating a change or in my ability to do so. I just did. What I did question was the why. During and after having left the scene of the accident, I was notably shaken to the core. Why had my guides sent me into an obvious death trap? Why had the long-awaited sign of a train crossing my path be a derailment? And why? Why hadn't I had the intuitive sense to avoid the road and the event altogether? An event that could have quite easily taken my life and the lives of many others. The guidance that came in that day was clear, calming, and life-changing. They said, "We did not send you into a death trap, Lauren. We didn't. We sent you into a life-threatening situation because you had the strength and soul capacity to carry the load and change the outcome. It is what you've always done." Mastering your soul works. It is an ultimate truth of this universe that all people hold the equal capacity to create change. Yeah, it is. However, as of yet, not everyone creates change with equal capacity. It is also true that every soul on and off this earth comes from, and is a reflection of the great I Am. However, not all people have learned to equally access or master that level of manifesting potential. A level that takes love, compassion, faith, and inner strength held from within. Symbolic and otherwise. That train derailment put my life back on track. It was on that impactful day I began to find the balance between continuing to carry the load and only offering assistance when and how I was guided to help. Essential balance was found between allowing and encouraging all others to learn to carry their own load, while also learning how to fully honor and accept how much of a load I have always carried. In my second book, Evolving Your Soul Works, I discussed how my life has been linked to prophecy and lightheartedly joked that perhaps I was living this bizarre biblical timeline because I had drawn the short straw. That's not my truth. Although I do understand my need to make light of the situation, it is not an accurate and honest reflection. Having trouble with this, hey? Okay, I have to read that again. I discussed my life being linked to prophecy, and lightheartedly joked that perhaps I was living this bizarre biblical timeline because I had drawn the short straw. That's not my truth. Although I do understand my need to make light of the situation, it is not an accurate and honest reflection of my reality. My truth is that I have fulfilled prophecy because I have the soul capacity and free will to respond when called, help change the outcome, and teach society how to get back on track. Your move. Balance the load. I find many people in this world ride the rails between one of two extremes. Those that carry too much of a load for all others, no matter what detriment that brings to themselves. And then the people who feel entitled by either want or need, expecting all others to carry the load on their behalf. Neither of these perspectives is in alignment to heart-centered living. Learn to balance the load by pitching in when you are guided, while also learning how to effectively carry your own. Trust in your process. No matter how many times I doubted my decisions or self-criticized my arrival at that train derailment that day, the truth was obvious. It was. I was guided to be there. Often we second guess decisions we have made or places we have ventured because we feel we were at the wrong place, wrong time. Look back over those key moments and dare to consider that perhaps you were exactly where you were meant to be. Right place, right time, and exactly right on schedule for the next experience and understanding to cross the tracks of your own soul works. Believe in your own contributions. As we individually and collectively move down the path to self-empowerment, one of the biggest pitfalls we must learn to avoid is dismissing the power and authority we hold within our own life, as well as our free will to help all others. Our individual contributions to the collective are happening every day within this energetic reality we call Earth. When you are guided to take the higher calling and help change the outcome of a situation for the greater good of all involved, gulp, and then believe and trust in your ability to do so. Transcend time. Time is irrelevant. It is in this world other than to show the progression of change and our historical timeline of both generational and evolutionary growth. Our soul actually transcends time. with the capacity to move backwards and forwards at will. When our soul fully jumps into a situation to create change, there is a distinct stop motion felt while we assess, alter, and navigate the path ahead. We can also utilize this expanded interval in time to revisit moments of our past or glimpse aspects of the future. I find this actually an effective tool to remove inner doubt or bring clarity. When questioning if you were on track, tapped in, and initiating change, one can always go back and watch this scene from the vantage point of above. Try it. The higher truth will always exist regardless of how much time has come to pass. Release the burden of proof. Our ability to create change is infinite. However, needing to take credit for or to prove your involvement within the larger landscape of change is quite futile. In times of co-creating potential, one must remove all doubts, including those of your own. Trying to interpret experiences based on opinions or trajectories of our existing reality can't be done. Human logic will never know the bigger picture. The bigger picture of our soul potential endures outside the reach of justification and rationalization. There is no burden of proof at a soul level. In those moments of soulful embodiment, our spirit responds by jumping into action. No logic, validation, or reasoning required. And lastly, tend to your baggage. Whether you are an enabler by carrying too much of a load for others, or one who has enabled all others to carry the load on your behalf, it's time to get back on track. It is time to get back on track. The world will never change until we all learn how to each take responsibility for our own individual energetic footprint on this earth. This includes the removal of outdated teachings and beliefs that someone else has and will carry the load on your behalf. This outdated teaching is one of the most detrimental stories ever told. Fact. Honor a soul's potential to carry the load, but also honor how it is ultimately humanity's responsibility to individually and collectively tend to their own baggage. There are no free rides on the evolutionary path to enlightenment. On track, and yet feeling like it's a runaway train? Me too. I'll see you there.